Alright guys, so today we're going to have a little bit of a different style of video for you guys. Basically, I used to do some technology videos back in my heyday, and I'm trying to see if maybe you guys like this style of content more. So let me know what you think. Obviously the shoot videos will keep coming, but we've hit a bit of a major dry spell here, so I'm going to try something a bit different. Basically, around 3 weeks ago, I switched over to Android after being a full-time Apple user for basically my entire life. So I'm going to jump into why this happened and overall just kind of talk about my experience, because after 3 weeks, I would say I have a pretty good grip on what the differences and what the similarities are between Apple and Android and all of the above. So right here I have the Google Pixel 7 Pro. This is the newest Google Pixel phone. As you can see, this is the front screen that you're greeted with. This is the black colorway. I'm actually going to take the case off for you guys so you can see the actual phone in all of its glory. Right here, there's a little sticker on it, don't mind that. That's just a little magnet for the car. But as you can see, let's just take a quick look around the phone as if it were a shoe. So on the front, you're greeted with that huge display that everyone knows and loves from all the other Pixel models. You got the always on display, which is very nice and vibrant. Good white, punchy blacks overall. Some great color coming out of it. On the side you can see that this is actually not the thinnest phone in the world. It's actually pretty thick compared to most phones, and it does have decently big bezels, and by big I mean still pretty much microscopic, but just not as small as some of the other phones on the market, specifically the Samsung S23 Ultra. On the back, you got this silver camera cut out with that high definition camera and the flash. This is a little bit different than the last Pixel because it's like on a metal bar, which is different than the rest of the phone, which is like a glass kind of feeling, Gorilla Glass construction. And yeah, so it does have a bit of a hump, so it doesn't rest perfectly flat on a table. Keep that in mind. On top, you got your SIM slot. On the bottom, you got your USB-C as well as a speaker. On the right side, you got a power button as well as a volume rocker. And then on the left side, just got another SIM slot. This phone is dual SIM equipped, so for all your shenanigans, you will be able to use this phone. So basically what I'm going to tell you guys real quick is why I ended up going for this phone and how I've been liking it so far. The main reason why I ended up switching to this phone is simply because I broke my iPhone. Before this, I had an iPhone 13 Pro in the all blue colorway, and I ended up cracking it stupidly in the gym by dropping a bench on top of it. I know, not my smartest decision. And I just figured, you know what, that calls for a change. It was pretty much like one of the first days of 2023, so I just swapped it out for the Pixel. And even when this thing came in, it took me a few days to actually fully switch over because I was frankly a bit nervous to switch over to an entirely new operating system. This thing is running on the latest and greatest Android version, which is Android 13, and it contains all the regular nooks and crannies that you would expect from a stock Pixel device. I believe Google promises up to 4 or 5 years of software updates with this phone, so ideally it could last you a very long time and much longer than any other Android phone, which might have some issues with keeping up to date, even though I would assume that most of the Samsung counterparts would be pretty well equipped to be upgraded a decent amount of times with the price points that they do sit at. Now, one of the main pros of this phone is the price. I believe this was purchased on eBay for $699, and it is the top of the line when it comes to Android phones. Like, there's nothing very lacking about this phone in particular. It's a very good everyday driver that will last you a good amount of time, and to be around $700 less than the top of the line iPhone, being the 14 Pro Max, is just incredible. Obviously, that lower price point is something that's going to be a little bit harder to find. I believe this goes for $900 straight from Google, but on eBay you should be able to find one for around $600 to $700. As this thing is already around 4 months old, it came out back in October, and I'm sure people are slowly but surely moving on to the next thing. Hopefully I was able to find a way to incorporate some B-roll of the phone itself, just taking you through some of the interface main points. And as I said, the price is incredible on the phone. Another big pro of the phone is that it does have a very smooth OS. I would go as far as to crazily state that this version of Android on this particular phone is smoother than any iPhone I've used, which is crazy because I remember back in the day, Android used to have the slowest operating systems, even though they had more powerful processors and all that, it would still be super slow no matter what. This thing is rocking the Google Tensor G2 Titan M2 security processor, 12 gigs of RAM, up to 24 hours of battery life, and a 6.7-inch beautiful display, which obviously in English just means that this has top of the line specs and there should be absolutely nothing to worry about. However, with like the optimization, it's also a great thing to note that this phone has great optimization, and you're not going to have any of that lag that comes from some Android phones back in the day, even though it would make sense if most phones by now would catch up to iOS in terms of that smoothness that we all know and love. Another great pro of this phone is the display, which is incredibly vibrant and punchy, and obviously gets very bright. As you can kind of see, I can make it so bright that it pretty much gets washed out of this actual camera, so that's always a good sign. And then yeah, it's a great phone overall. It's Android, which is pretty customizable. One con of this particular phone that I will bring up is that the always on display on the front of the phone is pretty much impossible to customize. You can't really change anything about it, and I believe that the newest iPhone even does have a more customizable always on display, which is a bit strange, but that is neither here nor there. That's just how Google wanted it for whatever reason. Another pro, I guess we'll just go back and forth, is that this thing does have both a fingerprint sensor and a Face ID unlocked, so you will be good to go in terms of unlocking your phone and security with the phone, so you won't have anything to worry about with that. That is a great thing to know, because with the iPhone you're pretty much forced to use Face ID. Alright guys, so unfortunately the camera died and we are on to the next day with the Google Pixel 7 Pro in that black colorway. Like we already said, we're just gonna keep it moving. So another big pro about this phone, and a major one to do with Android in general, is that the interfaces that involve Google and the Google-based ecosystems are just going to be far superior on an Android phone. This includes things like Gmail, Google Maps, and overall anything that involves Google, like Google Photos and all that stuff, is going to be better on this device. And people really like to say that the main thing that Apple has going for them is that they have that ecosystem that is like impossible to escape from. I would argue that the things that we use on an Android phone that involve Google-based services, we still use them on an iPhone, but they just aren't as good, and there's not really a replacement for things like Gmail and Google Maps, whereas, you know, iMessage can be easily replaced with something like WhatsApp, which is arguably better altogether. So that, in my opinion, is a major pro of this phone. But with a great pro, we're going to give you a great con. This is the worst thing about this phone, and it's not even really close. If I were to give up on trying to use this phone, it would be because of this issue right here. So the main issue with the Pixel is the front-facing camera. I'm going to try and add a few images on the screen of like the camera in action. Basically, the main issue is that even if there's a little bit of low light going on, it comes out completely grainy and almost unusable, to be honest. Like, you can't post an image looking like it's back from 1900s, and it's just really disappointing that Google opted to go for such a cheap sensor. Or I don't exactly know what the issue is with the front-facing camera, but there definitely is one. Like I said, I'm gonna include a few pictures, and I actually did call Google from the settings screen on this phone that can be accessed directly from the software, and they gave me a few troubleshooting steps. Nothing really worked, and I was still left with the same grainy pictures. So I was very disappointed with the camera. I really wouldn't think that the camera would be an issue with this phone, as it is called the Pixel, and the back camera leaves pretty much nothing to complain about. But for whatever reason, that dang front camera is just very disappointing and just not desirable at all. Now, moving on to the next thing about this phone. We're only going to do a few more, but I have to say that the battery is not the greatest in the world. I mean, it's definitely pretty much on par with an iPhone, but for some reason I thought it would be super good, and it just ended up not being all that great, unfortunately. But I think that one interesting thing with the battery on this phone is that it does improve the more you use it. Like, for the first few weeks, there's like a steady improvement in the battery life, because the first few days I had the phone, I wasn't even able to last through the day, and now I can do that pretty easily. So I think that's like the adaptive battery feature, which is very cool. And yeah, with that being said, I'm probably just gonna end it off right there with the features and the pros and the cons. My final verdict on the phone is that it is definitely the best Android phone that I've ever used, which is to be expected because I haven't used an Android phone in years. You won't regret this if you are someone who likes customizability on your phone and likes something different, but you will definitely get some sort of backlash from someone at some point for having those green messages, and how do you still use an Android phone in 2023? So you kind of got to be an entrepreneur in the way that you don't really care what people think, because a lot of people look down on others who use Android phones, which is actually kind of interesting, and I just shut the phone down by mistake. So I think that's my cue to end it off right here. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you want more content like this. Take care, and I'll see you all later.